What's going on, everybody? Your man Louie T here on some late night Louie action. Got a lot to get to. I didn't realize it'd been pretty much a week since the last time we had a podcast. So there's a lot of things that transpired since the last time we spoke. So I'll try to get to as much of that as I can. Um, all of the pro days are now behind us. Um, all the ones that matter, at least, and for the most part, they're all done. You know, and all the quarterbacks have had their pro days essentially. And so now the work is done, or as they like to say, the hay is in the barn. And everything that's going to be done has been done to this point. And now we can kind of assess where these quarterbacks are and where we think they're going to end up. We're going to do a lot of that tonight, in addition to kind of knocking down a few topics that I find interesting, and then whatever it is you find interesting. So we'll get to so much tonight and more here on the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 408th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I want to start off the show with some somber news. I want to get this out of the way now. Vontae Davis died yesterday at the age of 35. Former first-round pick corner. I believe he was a first-round pick, if not second-round pick, out of Illinois. That's sad news, man. Like, I was still tripping off of the Hammerhead news from when did Hammerhead pass? What, 2 years ago? Vincent Jackson? I still don't actually know what happened to Vincent Jackson. I think they ultimately came back and told us something, and I just can't remember what it was. But I hate seeing these guys pass at such a young age. It's ridiculous. And the authorities said that no foul play seemed to be involved. We don't know yet, what happened, what was the cause of death. We lost Demaryius Thomas like a year ago. I feel like it's been like a year now, maybe two. Feels like somewhere in that neighborhood. Just too many. The fact that I can start rattling off names of guys that are way too young, who haven't even hit like 40 years old yet, or barely over 40, and they're passing away. It's ridiculous, right? It's utterly ridiculous. And yeah, that one hit a little different, and I don't know why. I don't know why that one hit me like it did. But anytime somebody passes like that, my heart just sinks. It just sinks. And then you start thinking about people that are probably close to them that is affecting them, like Vernon Davis, who is his brother. And I remember the Hard Knocks episode where they told him he was being traded. And the first thing that he did was he asked, could he call his grandma and his brother? And, people kind of, he went viral off of that. I remember that because it was kind of weird how it all went down. Then he retired at halftime, if you recall. And, people started saying things about him. But this one is a little bit suspicious to me. I'll be following up to see what happened there, but that's sad. And then Miss P said, rip the Louis Gossett Jr. Yes, one of the legends of the game. And we don't have many left, man. We losing the legends, right? We still got a few that we holding on to, like Marla Gibbs, but Louis Gossett Jr. was a national treasure. And Now he's gone. So, and they say they come in threes. That's two. I get nervous when one person passes because I know somebody else is going, and I don't look forward to it. You know, rest in paradise to both of those men. One gone too soon, and the other lived a hell of a life. So, just wanted to start out the show with that. That was on my brain early, so I wanted to start there. Pivoting to a different conversation. We're going to have a couple conversations before we actually get to the meat and potatoes of tonight's show. Did y'all watch those games last night? Those girls were hooping. Okay, they were hooping. Yikes. I'd be lying to you if I sat here and told you I'm a female, a women's college basketball enthusiast. That would be false on so many levels. But every so often, stars come along and you just gravitate towards them. And right now, we're in the golden age, which probably isn't fair to those who have come before. But much like we saw with Steph Curry in the NBA and what he was able to do and doing things we had never seen done before, Caitlin Clark is doing that right now in college basketball. And to me, this is the golden age of women's college basketball. We've never seen anything like this before. And the proof is in the pudding, right? 12.3 million viewers last night for that Iowa LSU game, the rematch of last year's game. 12.3 million. That's the second highest basketball game for ESPN in terms of a pro or college. Second highest rated game since the 2018 Eastern Conference Finals. It's the number one college basketball game on ESPN from a rating standpoint in its history, men or women's college basketball. Caitlin went off. 9 threes, 40 points, 12 dimes, or 12 boards and like 9 dimes, whatever. She was flirting with a triple-double. I think it was 40, 12, and 7. Angel Reese was kicking ass until she hurt her ankle. She was 6 of 8 to start the game, including a nasty steal and finish to end the first quarter. Like, that was, you can't get a better game than the first half of that game. And then Caitlin goes nuts in the third quarter. What? The shots she was hitting in the third quarter, ridiculous. Ridiculous. LSU's got some shit. They got some dogs on their team, but they just, Caitlin is next level. That's some otherworldly shit she was doing. And I see, this is the effect that Caitlin has, right? Because I stuck around and checked out the other game with Juju Watkins and USC taking on UConn and Buckers, Paige Buckers. And I said, I'm here. I might as well just stick around and check this one out. Why not? And Paige Buckers can get buckets, but it don't seem like she should be kicking ass the way that she does. But somehow Paige is averaging like 28 a game. That was fun. I watched both of those games. That was fun. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I still don't think anybody's beating South Carolina. I still don't. That's a well-oiled machine over there, right? Dawn has those girls ready to go. Like, they're trained killers over there at South Carolina. They undefeated for a reason. I don't see anybody beating them, but If it's going to be somebody, I'm telling you right now, UConn is going to get dusted by Iowa by double figures. I don't expect that one to be close. I'll be shocked. They got so many girls injured, and they don't have any depth. They do got a big girl down low that was doing work, and she'll be interesting to watch in that game against Iowa, because I think they will have a distinct advantage down there, but I don't think they have enough. If Iowa's shooting the three like they did last game, and it's going to be pretty hard to maintain that, because it wasn't just Caitlin knocking down trays. But here, listen to me trying to break down women's college basketball. This is crazy. I still think when it's all said and done, it's South Carolina's championship to lose. They're undefeated for a reason, and I don't see anybody knocking off Don Staley's group. But if Iowa makes it, I'll be front row watching the game and seeing what the hell transpires. That was fun. I'll just say that anyway. So I was out of the office. And you know what? Let me just say this while we're on the topic of women. They got to figure out some shit with the WNBA. Because Caitlin Clark already said she's going to the league. She's going to the WNBA. But there's really no incentive for these girls to leave college, because the WNBA doesn't pay a whole hell of a lot of money. Now, we're seeing more and more of these women end up getting, brand deals and ending up more in the spotlight and getting more notoriety and making more money off the court, right? But they're already doing that now with NIL, with name, image, and likeness in college, and they're making money. Like Caitlin Clark's killing it, millions upon millions. You've seen the State Farm commercials. You see what she's out here doing. She's making bread already, right? Angel Reese is making money already. How many times have we seen her commercial running during March Madness? Like these girls are already making bread. I don't have to go to the WNBA. Now, you would think that with that exposure on a bigger stage, you would think that those opportunities will exist, and there'll be even more of them when they become professionals, but that's not always the case. That local car dealership that's a booster for Iowa isn't paying you when you leave Iowa University to then go, or the University of Iowa to go to the WNBA to play for the Shock, right? So it's going to be interesting to see if the WNBA finds, and again, it's easy for me to say, but they got to generate more money. I assume the more of these types of stars into the league, the more people might watch. It'll be interesting to see if the Caitlin Clark effect travels to the WNBA. Will you turn on a WNBA game if somebody's like, yo, Caitlin Clark got 7 threes and it's only the second quarter, right? Are you going to turn that game on? Are you watching a game because Caitlin Clark is playing in the WNBA? Or are you like, nah, that was just a college thing? That's what we're going to find out, just how much effect she has. But, man, I tell you, right now, this is as hot as I've ever seen women's college basketball. And when the WNBA first started, I was a big fan. I love the Houston Comets. I love that team. Tina Thompson, Lisa Leslie. Who else was on that team? Cheryl Swoops. They had an all-star team. Their team was cheating. It was really what it was. They had all the best players. That's why they won all the championships, it felt like. But this is as hot as women's ball has ever been. See if they can capitalize off of this. But anyway, so I told y'all I was going to be out of the office at the end of last week. But I didn't tell you why I was going to be out of the office. And so my daughter, we were celebrating her Sweet 16, and we had given her an option of a party that we would help finance, or we could take a trip. And she has been wanting to go to New York for a very long time. And we told her we'd take her if she wanted to go, but she had to make a decision. So she chose New York. So we had this trip planned, and we finally went. And we took her to Manhattan, which is what you do when someone's never been before, so they can really get that experience of New York. And I hadn't been in over a decade. I hadn't been to New York, like really been. I've been through New York. I haven't been to New York since the summer going into my 8th grade year. I stayed in Brooklyn with a friend's sister for a week. We went shopping. We caught we got the full experience. We stayed in Brooklyn. We used public transportation. I got on the train. I saw a naked dude. Yeah, I got the whole experience as like a 12-year-old, 12, 13-year-old. It was great. It was everything that I thought it was going to be. And that's the thing. Cynthia Cooper, yes, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous, right? So I wanted her to experience some of that. She didn't get the full experience. We didn't get into any public transportation, no buses, no trains, none of that stuff. So we kept it nice and clean. We stayed in Manhattan. We walked everywhere for the most part. Didn't need to get in any taxis or anything. But one of the things you always have to prepare people for when they go to New York for the first time is, one, people are rude. And I don't think people mean to be rude. It's just how they operate in New York. I don't like making excuses for people being rude, because there's really no excuse for you not having manners. When in Rome, though, you do as in Rome, right? When in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So it took me a little while, because we drove, and the aggressiveness, everything is aggressive in New York. And I tried to convey that to my daughter. My wife also had never been before. So, but I had primed them, and I over prepared them, right? I over prepared them, and New York did not under deliver. It over delivered. Okay. You can never over prepare someone for New York. So we're driving, and the traffic hits us, and people are just driving crazy. They're creating their own lanes. People are double parking. It's just crazy, because you'll be driving, and a bus will just stop in the middle of the street. A taxi will just stop in the middle of the street. And now you got to go around that car. And cars behind you don't have the courtesy to say, come on, man. Yeah, that bus just stopped in front of you. You come on out. They coming out, and they zooming by you, and everybody's zooming by you, and you're going to have to make your way out. And I was driving all timid at first. I'm out here VA driving, right? And then I realized, my wife was like, look, man, you're going to have to go, right? And then it kicked in, like, I snapped out of it like, hey, bro, you in New York. Get your shit together, right? So then I started driving like I was from New York, and I started doing some real ignorant stuff, right? And at one point, it got to the point where my wife was like, hey, look, you need to calm down. Like, you really driving like them now. And that we drove past an accident, like, which you're going to see because of the way that these people drive. It's ridiculous. Something else that was so comical to me, my daughter got a kick out of this, right? Soon as the light turns green, you better be stepping on that gas whether you can go or not, okay? If you ain't moving, we have a problem, because that horn will be honked immediately. Not immediately, immediately. It's ridiculous. Like, the light literally it didn't even finish turning green yet, and they already honking the horn. And my daughter's like, bro, the light just turned green. What do you want us to do? It's crazy, right? Then when you're walking, you're crossing the street, and you got people riding the bikes. That's another thing that wasn't as prevalent the last time that I was there. So there weren't as many lights, like Times Square and Broadway, and all of those streets, those very heavily populated streets. There's so many more lights than there were, more billboards. It's just bigger. New York is just bigger, right? Oh, it's beautiful. You know, the city lights up, and it was gorgeous. I'm not even going to front. You never get tired of seeing the aesthetics of New York. At least me. At least I never do. But it was even more beautiful than when I went when I was in the 8th grade. And I thought it was everything when I was going into my 8th grade year, you know. But so we're out walking, and people are riding their bikes, and you know, you got the people that ride the bikes that have the little carriage attached to it that you can ride in, and they're cutting in and out of traffic. They're almost running you over. It's crazy. Then you're walking, and you got to be ready, bro. Like, if nobody's coming, you got to walk across the street, and you just get into this flow of, hey, if they start walking, you just start walking. Me and my daughter got to the point where we would get right to the edge of the street. Sometimes we would even walk right to the cusp of the lane. We look, if ain't no car coming, we go across the street, and people just follow you. Like, if you take off, they trust you, they gone. And the thing is, if a car's coming and y'all crossing the street, they're not gonna hit you, but they're gonna honk at your ass like, hey, get out the way. But they're not gonna hit you. They want to hit you because it's New York, right? They want to hit you, but soon as that walk sign comes out, you gotta go, right? And it's this massive crowd of walking, and people don't like, it's a straight line. If this person is walking in this space, they've carved out this space for themselves. You can't infiltrate that space. If you do, prepare to get run over. They're going to run right into you, and they're not going to say, excuse me. They're not going to look back to see if you okay. None of that shit. So you got to make sure that you carve out your own space. You got to be physical, okay? Let's get physical. You can't be soft. You can't be no punk. You got to be physical with your space, because they'll try to take your space from you, right? And you got to go. It ain't no slow pace. Like, I'm from VA. So we walk at our own leisurely pace. You trying to be cool. You got your little bop. You know what I'm saying? And you got your little pace that you walk in at. That, you throw that shit out the window when you get to New York. It's one speed, and that's 5. Okay? Whatever your fastest speed is, that shit gets stuck in that gear. Okay? You got 2 speeds. Stop in 5. Okay? And so I've never walked that fast in my life. You know, we just walking. It got to the point by day 3 of the trip, me and my daughter were walking, and people are walking in front of us, and we walking by them. We're like, they in front of us, and we getting mad because they walking too slow. And I'm thinking to myself, bro, what are we doing right now? This is not how we conduct ourselves. But again, you get infected with the evils of New York. And man, we were hauling ass. You know, it got to the point where we were gone. I'm walking past old people. I felt bad. Like, after I did, I was like, damn, you just walked past like a 70-year-old man and woman. Like they was in the way. Like, that's mean, but that's New York, bro. We walked. That was the first time I ever walked through a protest. They had a political Palestinian genocide protest. I want to say it was like 38th Street. It was right down the street from Macy's. And they was going in, right? Got the megaphone, and they chanting. They got their Palestinian flags, and we just trying to get through so we can get to where we going, right? And we got to work our way through. The police out there. That shit was intense. We got a really good experience. Took her to Sugar Factory, had a blast there. Got us a little, you know, got her a drink, you know, that had the smoke coming out of it and whatnot. Reminded me of when I went to the Jefferson lab with the nitrogen. What was that stuff called? I forgot. Like the frozen, you know, the dry ice. But yeah, we had a great time. Did a little shopping. Went to Madame Tussauds. Took a bunch of pictures. We had a blast, man. We had a lot of fun. Went to a Broadway show. We went and saw Wicked. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I actually did enjoy it. I want to go back and go see the MJ Experience. I want to go see that. Maybe Lion King. I'd actually go back to New York and just to go see a Broadway show. That was pretty dope. And so had a great time. She had a blast, and she couldn't stop looking out the window. Enjoyed the view. We had a great view. and she took some really good pictures. We took some great pictures. And she was like, man, this is everything that I thought it was going to be. And then some. Like, you see New York on television, you see all the taxis. The taxis don't look like they did when I was in the 8th grade. Now everybody's driving in like van taxis. Like, they're bigger now. But you see taxis everywhere. You hear a lot of horns, and you think that's just television. It's not. That's New York for real. That's the essence of New York. And boy, did we have a heck of a time. And the weather was nice. We only had one day where it rained, and that was the first night we got there. And even then, you're walking with your umbrella, and the umbrella, if it's too big. Another thing that we learned is you can't have big umbrellas in New York. It's in the way. It's too much space. It's a hazard almost, because people are bumping into your umbrella. And again, she was so worried and concerned about, oh, I hit someone. I'm like, they don't care. Nobody's turning around to worry about whether you hit them with their umbrella. They've carved out a path, and if you're in their way, you could get run over, right? Don't worry about it. I just said, just raise the umbrella up a little bit higher when people are coming, and keep it pushing. If it bumps into somebody, they'll be okay. Like, you got to adjust. But it was an adventure. It was nice to go back. I hadn't been in such a long time, and we had a really good time. I had to learn the streets again, avenues and north 34, west 34th Street, all that shit, so it's a lot when you get to New York, but it's worth it. If you haven't been, do yourself a favor and go to New York. It was a beautiful experience. I'm glad I got to experience that with my daughter for the first time. Anyway, boy, yes, somebody said, ain't no way y'all boys used to that smell. That sewer is as rotten as you will. And like my daughter, the first time we got a whiff of that. Whoo! That first whiff, that shit burned off your first set of nostrils. Gone. Fa! Gone. Right? We just walking, minding our business. God damn. You remember that Jamie Foxx special where he went to Africa? And I think it was I Might Need Security. And he said he went to Africa, and the guy was on the train, and he had on cologne, and that stinks to them. And he said, Jamie Foxx said the dude was musty and he stunk. And he was like, Jamie Foxx was like, damn, what is that smell? And that dude said, yes, what is that smell? Right? That's how it was when we smelt that first whiff of the sewer. That shit came up, and that sewer shit is strong, and it's so foul that it actually has a cloud of smoke. Like, you can see the sewer stench. Like, you know how on the cartoons when you were growing up, if something stunk, it would be green. Like the odor would be green. That's how the sewer shit is. It's like a thick cloud of funk that just comes up through the sewer. That shit stinks. Damn, that shit stinks. It's the worst sewer smell I've ever smelled in my life. Like, god damn, what is down there? Anyway, I digress, man. It was great. We enjoyed it, and I said we're going to go back. She wants to go back. She didn't want to leave. She did not want to leave. It was a lot of fun. We really did have a good time. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to what you all came here for, which is let's talk some ball, man, which is what you guys probably showed up for. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So we've gotten to the point of the draft season where the pro days are essentially in the rearview mirror, at least the ones that really matter to us. For the most part, once you get out of March and you hit April, pro days are done. Now you're getting into your official 30 visits. any private workouts that need to be taking place. You're having some of those. You're going to some of those. Guys that couldn't work out at their pro days are holding private workouts. You go to those, that sort of thing. But the main purpose for this discussion is to talk about the quarterbacks, right? And all the pro days have happened. All the quarterbacks have performed. And now we need to sort out where these quarterbacks are, what's being said about them, and what do we think ultimately transpires. So we'll start at the top. Make this short and sweet. We don't need to spend a lot of time on Caleb Williams. His pro day was outstanding. He's going to be the number one pick in the draft. Chicago's going to take him. I don't think there's any suspense there, right? So I think the draft really starts at number 2 with Washington, because nobody actually knows what they're going to do. And there was a series of pro days that took place. Started with J.J. McCarthy, and Washington wined and dined him. But he is a guy that I think started to, as the evaluators and the coaches started to get involved in the film process, I think he started to gain a little bit of traction. I think a lot of people feel like J.J. McCarthy is all smoke, no fire, and that, you know, his rise potentially up the draft board is some sort of smokescreen. Well, my perspective on that has been this. If you're Washington or New England, you don't have to fool anybody. Like, there's no reason for any, like, you're not tricking 3 teams in front of you to make them think that you're going in this direction, so the guy that you ultimately want falls to you. We're going bing, bang, boom, quarterback, 1, 2, 3. So I don't have to fool anybody. Caleb is going 1. Washington will have their choice of who they want at number 2, and then the Patriots have to decide who they want at 3. There's no tricking anybody. I think the J.J. McCarthy discussion is real. Now, if I'm selecting 2 or 3, I'm not going with J.J. McCarthy. But that's not for me to decide. I can tell you this. Everything that you've seen from him, the winning, one of the most winningest quarterbacks in college football history, 27-1, I believe, was his record. National championship under his belt. You know, very accurate with the football, takes completions, doesn't put the ball in harm's way, manages the game well, uses his legs. He's a solid athlete, uses his legs when necessary. He loves football. And I think he's one of those guys that was a really good leader at Michigan. I remember hearing stories about him and Mike Sandrill in particular when they lost the year before to TCU in the playoffs. All they did was obsess about getting back to the national championship and winning it this time. And we saw all of the distractions that Michigan had last year, mainly with Coach Harbaugh. And those guys powered through and they got it done. And a large part of that success and credit probably goes to J.J. McCarthy for keeping everybody, you know, level-headed, keeping everybody locked in and focused and you know, making sure that they got the job done. So there's a lot that goes with J.J. McCarthy, but at the end of the day, I'm not here for the guy that's a part of the process, being able to rally the troops and all of that good stuff. But I'm here for the measurables. I'm here for the ability to get it done and the leadership qualities. And I think McCarthy has some of those traits, but I don't think he's a game changer necessarily, right? So I want to start with Jaden Daniels, and we'll go from there. And really, I just started with J.J. McCarthy. I think he's primed to go 4th in this draft in terms of quarterbacks. He'll be the 4th one off the board. I don't see him upsetting Daniels or May in this draft. It could happen. I don't rule anything out. But I still think he's going to go fourth, right? Jaden Daniels, to me, is one of the most intriguing prospects in this particular draft because if you love him and you think he's got Lamar Jackson-like qualities, you're going to vouch for him. You're going to ignore some of the things that he may or may not do well. I think a lot of people are concerned about the throwing the ball over the middle of the football field. A lot of people are concerned about his size. Those things don't really bother me as much, right? I don't really get too concerned about the size. I am somewhat concerned about the throwing over the middle of the football field, but some of that could have been the offense that they ran and how it was set up. I know a lot of their passes were thrown out to the perimeter, a lot of hitches, a lot of comebacks on the outside, a lot of swing routes and things that got the ball out into the flats. So, some of that wasn't because of, him just not being able to be accurate over the middle of the field or not attempting throws over the middle of the field. A lot of that that's how the offense was set up. But what I am concerned with Jaden Daniels is a couple of things. And these are things that you're not going to see in a pro day, right? One, what happens when the play breaks down and you don't like what you see? He was one of the few quarterbacks in this draft class that had a lot of time. You watch some of these games and he's just standing back there building a house. And a lot of that was because of his ability to run. And that's why you have to take that into consideration when you talk about Jaden Daniels. The reason that there were times where he'd be back there for 7 seconds in the pocket is because teams said, we can't rush him because if we get too far up the field, he's just going to tuck in and run and he's going to do to us what he did to Florida. And we can't let that happen. We much rather him stay in the pocket and beat us from there, which he was able to do. 40 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, accounting for over 50 total touchdowns en route to a Heisman Trophy. So he clearly showed he could do that. But my thing is, what happens when you don't like what you see, things break down? Are you just going to tuck it and run? And I remember having this same question about Deshaun Watson. And he seemed to clean that up pretty quickly at the next level. A lot of people felt like Watson was a 1 or 2 read guy, and then he would tuck it and run. And I remember it made me think of Robert Griffin III and what they would tell him. And this is why coaching is so important, and you don't know what these guys are being taught to do, because what Mike and Kyle Shanahan would tell Robert Griffin III in his rookie season was, you get through your first 2 reads, and you're the check down. Just take off and run. If you don't like what you see with the first read, you don't like the second read, you're the check down. Take off and go, right? And if that's what he's being coached to do, and that's what he's doing, you can't be mad that he's not getting to his 3rd or 4th progression. They told him, 1, 2, get out of there. You're the check down. So you don't know what's being taught, but I just know he didn't look to extend plays with his arm. Once he didn't like what he saw and things broke down, he was looking to take off and run. And that's what I'm more concerned with than anything else, because generally guys don't learn how to be extend the play playmakers. That's somewhat innate, something that you either have or you don't have. Like, nobody taught Patrick Mahomes how to extend plays. That's what he's been doing his entire career. Josh Allen was extending plays at Wyoming. You either do that. Joe Burrow was extending plays to the point where you're like, Joe, you got to find out, you got to know when to say when, bro. One of my biggest criticisms of Joe Burrow coming out was he's overextended plays. Like, certain guys, that's what they did in college. Lamar Jackson was doing that in college. That's part of the reason he was a Heisman Trophy winner. That's not what Jaden Daniels is doing, And then you add into the mix of the arm talent. Is it good enough at the next level? Will he anticipate enough to compensate for some of the arm talent that may or may not be there. Who's to say? I still like him. I think he's going to be a hell of a prize for whomever gets him. And I can't see him falling out of the top 3 of this draft, right? The biggest enigma of this draft is Drake May. And if there's one guy that could fall out of the top 3, it's Drake May. And first of all, his pro day, I thought, let me just go back to Jaden Daniels for a second. I thought Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr., I thought their pro days were plain Jane. Now with Penix, we'll talk about him a little bit more. He did more at his pro day, and we'll talk about why he did that. And I've already talked about it on a different show, but I'll reiterate that again here. But I thought those pro days were kind of plain Jane, right? Safe is what I call them. They were safe pro days. I loved Drake May's pro day because it wasn't safe. They aimed to show a lot of the different things he could do. They aimed to show his skill set, which is what I think a pro day should be. It should be a showcase of what you do well. Like a lot of people were mocking Joe Milton III for throwing 80-yard bombs at his pro day. That's what he should be doing. It's a showcase. It's an opportunity for you to show scouts, this is what you can get. Look, nobody ever questioned Joe Milton's arm. It's always been the accuracy of that arm, okay? He could throw it a million miles per second, but is it going to be accurate? Is he going to put touch on it? Or is he going to try to throw a hole into... I remember Steve Smith killing the kid, I think he was from Toledo. I forgot the name of that quarterback. He ended up converting to tight end and ended up playing with the Eagles. I don't know if he's still on the Eagles roster or not. At the combine, they were doing the gauntlet drill, and the dude was throwing BBs, right? I mean, missiles from, 5 yards, 7 yards away. And Steve Smith's like, bro, what the hell is wrong with you? He went up to him on national television like, bro, what the hell is wrong with you? These dudes out here trying to make money, and you out here trying to throw a damn hole through their head. And that's the issue with Joe Milton is like, bro, what are you doing here, guy? But at your pro day, this is what you get to showcase. I do have a massive arm. I am an athlete, and he did run a 40, and he did run like a 4.55. So he got to show off the athleticism, the arm talent, all of that good stuff. That's what a pro day is for. It's also for you to clean up some of the things that may have been a concern, show that at least you've been putting in the work. It may not be a finished product, but they can see that you've put in work, right? And I felt that way about Drake May's pro day. It wasn't the cleanest. There were misses, but all in all, I felt like most of the pro days were like roughly 50 to 55 throws. He threw the ball 75 times at his pro day. It was initially scripted to be 70. He had 5 do-overs, which I thought was excellent. Like he made some mistakes. He missed some balls. He's like, nah, the competitor in him, nah, do it again. Let's run it back. And I like that, right? I had a bad miss. I'm coming back to that again. We're gonna tighten that up. We're gonna clean that up. And he showed some off balance, off one foot, escaping the pocket, stepping up, throwing off of a different platform. He showed all of that stuff that I didn't see from the other guys in their workouts. It's not always going to be clean. And I thought he showcased a little bit. I saw the footwork. It's better. It's not where you want it to be yet, but with more, reps and more practice and, the repetition of, continuing to get him where he needs to be, it's all there. That's the thing with Drake May. It's all there. And what's crazy to me is people are talking about Drake May as if he's Christian Hackenberg or something. Like he's Humpty Dumpty. I remember having this conversation when Hackenberg came out in like 15 about Hackenberg being Humpty Dumpty and how his mechanics were broken and everything was all over the place. But he was super talented. He was one of the most highly regarded quarterbacks in his class. coming into college, and he had developed all these poor habits, and he was a mess. But talent-wise, he had everything other than, real athleticism. He was more of a pocket passer, but he had the arm talent. He could be accurate, but he had a lot of work. It was literally putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. He was broken. Drake May is not broken. He's not Humpty Dumpty. He's not Christian Hackenberg. Stop treating him as if he's such. I don't understand this narrative like this guy's going to be some project. Most quarterbacks come in the league and need tweaking. There aren't many guys that come into the league ready to go right out of the packaging. Few quarterbacks are. So this notion that, he's this project and you can't take a project at 2. What are you talking about? He's not Christian Hackenberg. He needs some work. Every quarterback in this draft needs work. But there's no higher upside to me in this draft than Drake May. And I think it'd be a mistake if he made it out of the top 3. But of all the quarterbacks, I don't see any way Jaden Daniels makes it out of the top 3. We know Caleb Williams isn't getting past 1. Of all of the big 3, if there were one guy that was going to escape the top 3 and fall out of that mix, it's Drake May. I still think he goes top 3. I still think the order, in some order, it's going to be Williams, May, and Daniels, right? In whatever order you see fit. But I can't see JJ McCarthy or some other player infiltrating the top 3. But we'll see. If anybody does something off script, it'll be the Patriots. It won't be the Commanders. I'm just telling you that right now. It'll be the Patriots. If somebody goes off script and does something crazy, it'll be the Patriots. Whether that's trading out of the pick or taking JJ McCarthy, it'll be the Patriots. And even still, I don't see the Patriots doing something crazy. Then there's Bo Nix. And Bo Nix, the issue with Bo Nix for a lot of people, and he still hasn't solved this issue, and you can't really clean this up necessarily at your pro day. And I talked about this in my breakdown of Bo Nix, and then people going there, I didn't realize that this was as big of an issue, not on tape, but people went and saw him throw live, and they weren't feeling the velocity, right? The arm wasn't, it's not a cannon. And like, everybody doesn't have a cannon. Not everybody has a cannon. So he doesn't. I don't think Jaden Daniels has a cannon. And that's okay. Joe Burrow doesn't have a cannon. You don't have to have one. It's nice if you do, but you don't have to. But what he lacks in arm talent, he makes up with timing and precision and, touch and things of that nature. But there are 2 things with Bo Nix. One, was he a beneficiary of, because he set the record, the NCAA record for the highest completion percentage all time in a season. And the question is, first of all, anybody that watched knows there's a steady diet of bubbles and hitches and, throws at or behind, but not necessarily behind, because those would be technically a run, throws at or barely in front of the line of scrimmage. Like, there is a steady diet of those. We call them layups. A lot of layups, right? But then as he gradually works his way down the field, he's still accurate in that intermediate area. Where people think he may struggle is down the field, putting that zip on the football in those tight windows down the field on that deep dig or on that post where you got to kind of drill it in there, that bang 8, right? Where you got to squeeze it in there before that safety comes over, that honey hole shot up the sideline. If you got the balls to try it, And they don't think that Bo Nix is that type of quarterback. He's more of, you know, I want to say like a Drew Brees type. And even Brees could make some of those throws, right? But that's why I think he's perfect for Sean Payton's offense. That's what Payton, has been dealing with. And I just think naturally Bo Nix is a Denver Bronco. That's what it feels like to me. But the biggest question for me is Bo Nix actually good, or was he a byproduct of the Oregon offense? And then the other question is on talent. Do you have enough of it to excel at a high enough level to be more than just a competent NFL quarterback? Because you got to be able to sling it. And then Michael Penix Jr., he was another guy that really wasn't going to be able to show some of the issues and clean them up at his pro day. Now, one thing that was questioned, and I'm guilty as charged, I questioned it with him. Are you an athlete? Because you just felt like Michael Penix Jr. was a better athlete than what he was showcasing, but he literally looked like his feet were stuck in cement when he would be in the pocket. Too many 3rd and 7s where the pocket starts to collapse and there's an escape route. He gets out, but it's a 1-yard gain because he's not fast enough to take advantage, athletic enough to go and make it happen and pick up the first down with his legs. And you just go, bro, is that it? Is that the best you can do? Their offense didn't showcase him as a runner, and it didn't need to because they were a point and distribute offense. You point to a guy and you distribute the rock to him. So he was a good distributor of the football. He didn't need to use his legs. But when the time called for him to extend something, one, he was not accurate throwing the football on the move. I think he was a 70% passer when stationary in the pocket. And then when his feet were asked to move and he was outside the pocket, now he turned into a 39% passer, I believe. So clearly there's a discrepancy there when things break down. So the question with Penix was, are you an athlete? Because you look real unathletic right now. And 2, what happens when the pocket breaks down and you're forced off of your initial spot and you have to reset your feet and then throw, or you got to get out of the pocket, extend, and then throw? What happened? You're not able to really show that at your pro day, right? You can script in a couple of boots and a couple of throws where you get out of the pocket and you throw on the move and you do it accurately, and that helps. But his best example of, hey, I can do it, is the Texas game, specifically the first half, though, where he was insane. But the Michigan game is another example of, bro, you didn't do it well, and you can't do it well, and you haven't done it well. When teams get you off of your spot, you struggle, and that Michigan game was as good a proof as any. He was awful in that game. He was awful. And it was because he didn't seem mobile. He could not extend. His right tackle was getting beat like a drum. There was pressure, and he couldn't do anything. And then when he had time and open receivers, he was missing because he got rattled. So he had to show, like, none of the other quarterbacks, not McCarthy, not Daniels, not May, not Caleb, none of the other quarterbacks ran of note. None of the guys, the top 6, Bo Nix, none of those dudes ran. They didn't need to, because at some point they showcased their wheels enough at the collegiate level that you don't question whether they're athletic enough to hurt you with their legs when it is necessary. All of them showcase the ability in some capacity to do that, except Michael Penix Jr. And I think pre-injuries at Indiana, you saw a little bit more of it, but even then he wasn't dynamic. So he had no choice but to go out and run the 40 and jump and do all of those things, because without it, first of all, who would have thought Michael Penix Jr. was going to run a sub 4.6? Raise your hand. Who would have thought that? Not I. I'm not even going to hold you. I didn't think he was capable, especially on, the surgically repaired knees that he's got going on over there. I never would have thought he would have been able to run that fast. And not even because of the surgeries, which makes it really impressive, but just off the strength of the fact that I just didn't see it ever. And just because he ran fast in a straight line doesn't mean that he's going to be able to transfer that over to an NFL field. I don't think that's who he is. But he wanted to showcase, hey, if y'all want to use me as a dual threat, I'm capable of that. That's good to know. At the end of the day, I still think there's a chance. And if you ask me, who's the one quarterback that could fall out of the first round of the 6 of them? Because truly, 4 of them could go in the first, and 1 or 2 of them could fall out of the first round altogether. Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. 5 are definitely going in the first round. The question is, will it be 6? If you ask me who's the most likely to fall out of the first round, I tell you it's Bo Nix. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think he has a massive superpower. I think his superpower is accuracy. He's very accurate with the football, short to intermediate, quick delivery, played a lot of ball. I think he set the NCAA record for the most starts in history for a quarterback. There's enough there where he's got some superpowers, but I don't know if they're as dynamic as the others. You could maybe wait on Bo Nix. Truly, though, I think of these 6 quarterbacks, there's a chance for the first time in NFL draft history, 6 quarterbacks go in the first round. And at this current juncture, I'd actually be shocked if we don't see that record set on April 25th, day 1 of the draft. I'd actually be shocked. I'd be more shocked if we only had 5. And if there's somehow, some way, only 4 that go in the first round, mine is blown because of all of this quarterback talk, all of the teams that are needy. Are you going to, because what you don't want to do, right, is be so passive that, like, say a team like Denver, what you don't want to do is be so passive that you just assume, well, nobody else needs a quarterback. Because we had this conversation already. Once you get past the Raiders at 14, there really aren't any other teams that should theoretically need a quarterback. Theoretically speaking, right? But if you're the Rams, why not take one of these guys, right? If you're a team, back into the first round and you've got a veteran, i.e. the Jets, who we heard they're not taking a quarterback at 10, but let's say they trade back. They want out of 10. That's the rumor, that they want out of 10. They want somebody to come take that pick off. So let's say somebody comes up and they end up with the 23rd pick. If you're the Jets and you move back from 10 to 23, you pick up some capital. What's stopping you from taking one of these quarterbacks? What's stopping you from getting Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr., stashing them behind Aaron Rodgers for a year or 2? Of the quarterbacks that are coming into the league, I would think those are the 2 that are probably the most ready to play, if we're being honest. Excuse me, but What's stopping you from drafting and stashing if you're the Rams, if you're the Jets? So you don't want to be too coy if you're Denver, like, they'll be there. If you want them, just get them, you know? So I find it hard to believe that it'll be anything less than 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, but 6, I think, is going to end up happening, but we will see. So let's go ahead and transition to social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder. Y'all know what it is. Y'all go ahead and start lining up your comments. Y'all know how this works. If you don't, super chats go straight to the front of the line. So if you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If it is pertinent, we will knock it down, time permitting. But to ensure that your comment is read, super chats are the way to get that done. I'm going to start off the conversation with a couple of topics real quick, almost in case you missed it, format and style, and then we'll get to the comment section and we'll go from there. So I wanted to talk about a few things. Let's start with Justin Simmons still being available as a free agent safety. I don't know if I'm super surprised, but I think I am a bit surprised. Just a little. With the way that the safety market ended up shaking out, I don't think I'm blown away by the fact that he hasn't signed yet. He's waiting for the right opportunity. I just thought that there would have already been a team that is in a Super Bowl win now type of situation, like the 49ers, or, the Chiefs, or one of these teams, the Packers, that might have seen a window. The Lions, they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You would have thought one of those type teams would have stepped up and said, hey, we'll pay you a 2-year, $32 million deal, right? Or something to that effect. And nobody has yet. I still expect him to get a pretty lucrative offer at some point. It'll be interesting to see what he ends up signing for, whatever it is. I will be like floored if it ends up being some crazy like 1 year, $8.5 million deal or some craziness, because a lot of the money is gone, right? But somebody's gonna have enough bread to break Justin Simmons off before it's all said and done. And I just thought he would have signed by now. Kind of still surprised that he's out there. There are a number of guys that are veterans that you expect to still be out there. Xavier Howard hasn't been able to stay healthy, but he can still help somebody. He'll get work eventually, right? But I'm not shocked that he's available. Those kinds of guys end up being available towards camp, and then they sign a deal, right? But Odell Beckham Jr., we've seen this from him, where it takes him a while to find a new home, but he ultimately does. He'll find work at some point after the draft. It's a deep wide receiver draft class. So if you're a team out there, you're going to go to the draft first before you go sign Odell Beckham Jr. to a deal. But he'll eventually find work. But I'm actually quite surprised that Justin Simmons hasn't found a home yet. Here's an interesting trade over the weekend. We knew Hassan Reddick was on the block. Really, it was him and Josh Sweat. Both Eagles edge rushers were on the block. And they ended up saying that they were going to hold on to Sweat and that they were going to move on from Hassan Reddick. And Reddick wanted to stay in Philadelphia. He's a Philly kid. He wanted to stay home, and he grew up an Eagles fan. This was his dream. He didn't want to leave, but he had that big season in 2022 with 16 sacks. He wanted to be extended then, but he was a good soldier, didn't balk, showed up on time, played out, the 2023 season, didn't have the follow-up and the encore to that massive success from 2022, but still was expecting to get something done with Philadelphia. And, I think the writing was on the wall when we saw what they did in the draft with Nolan Smith and all of that stuff. You had to know that the end was near. And then going out and signing Bryce Huff in free agency was the straw that broke the camel's back. At that point, Hassan had to know they gave my money to this chump in Bryce Huff. And so he's going to have to get his money elsewhere. So this is a weird deal because the Jets get themselves a ready to go out of the packaging pass rusher right now. Guy that can come in and get you double-digit sacks up in the upcoming season. The Jets are ready to go win right now. Again, Rodgers is healthy. The Jets have to be one of the teams that you have to look out for in the AFC. Said it last year. I'm going to say it again. They're still just as talented. They probably are even more talented now with the guys that they've acquired. The guys that were rookies last year got a year of football under their belt at the NFL level. They're probably even better now than they were a season ago. And adding a guy like Hassan Reddick is further proof of that. What they added him for was fascinating. So it's a conditional 2026 third-round pick, not a 2025. Okay. Mind you, we're going into the 2024 draft. They're not getting a pick next year. They're getting a pick the year after. This is some NBA bullshit here we're talking about, where trades happen that you forget about, and then you get a pick 4 years down the road that you forgot about. That's rare in the NFL. Usually teams want their capital now. And if not now, the very next year. So that 3 can turn into a 2 based off of 2 things happening. He has to play over 60, I think it's 67 or 8% of the snaps and this upcoming season. And he has to get 10 sacks or more. If he does that, that third round pick in 2026 turns into a second round pick for the Eagles. That's an interesting trade. Right now, all signs point to this working out for the Jets because they get the immediate payoff right now. We'll see what it ultimately turns out to be for the Eagles. We may be talking shit now, and then 2 years later, the Eagles have 2 seconds, 2 firsts. So you're like, oh, damn. Look at the Eagles doing that shit again, or they'll be in a position with 2 seconds to go back into the first if need be. Who's to say? But Hassan Reddick is now a New York Jet, so he's not leaving too far, right? He's not going too far away from home. Here's an interesting signing by the Chiefs. They're signing Louis Rees-Zammit. Louis Rees-Zammit, who is a rugby player. And this guy ran a 4.43 at a workout. He's only 22 years old. They're gonna put him in the IPP, which is the International Pathway Program. Sign him to their program where it doesn't take up a roster spot while he's learning the NFL game. And if this guy works out, and at one point I used to turn my nose, down at the pathway program, down, up, left, right, side to side. I wasn't paying any attention to these IPP guys. I remember the 49ers had a guy that they got, a rugby player, and it didn't work out. But with the new rules coming in for kickoffs and this guy's speed, I don't know if you've seen it, if you've checked out any of his clips. This dude can run, man. He can run. Like you see the 4.43 when he's out there playing rugby. I don't know about the physicality, but after seeing what Jordan Mailata turned into, and I get it, he's a massive monster of a man, but seeing how he ended up learning the game and ended up becoming one of the best left tackles in football, I have renewed faith and hope for guys that go through this program. And this dude is really talented. If he turns out to be what the Chiefs think he could be, so just another weapon for the damn Kansas City Chiefs. Jadeveon Clowney signs a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Carolina Panthers. And I just found it interesting because Clowney has been a mercenary for hire, essentially. And I thought he would end up going somewhere good this upcoming season because of the season he just turned in with the Ravens. But this was about him wanting to go home. You know, he's from South Carolina. This is an opportunity to get close to home. This is as close as he's going to be able to get to home. And we'll see what he does with the Panthers. Panthers traded away Brian Burns. They need an edge rusher. Clowney's going to fill that void for him. And he signed a 2-year deal. Hey, how about that? And again, I think that's more so because it's close to home, right? So anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section and see what you guys are talking about. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Twin D, writes, LOL. LT said, saw a naked dude. It was great. Where's the pause? There probably should have been a pause in there. And if in the context of what I was saying, you understood it, but there should have been a pause. Right? Somebody said the other day, listening to my shows, not watching, just listening, is always fun because you just never know when I'm gonna say some crazy shit and not throw a pause in there. I be wilding too when people bring the shit up and then I go back and they timestamp it and I click on it and it takes me to that point and I say some crazy shit and don't even realize it. I'll be like I think the person timestamped when I was talking about Jameis Winston on Hard Knocks, and I said you never know when Jameis is just gonna bust one. And there was no pause. I was like, yo, I be tripping sometimes and don't even realize it, right? That shit doesn't even register until after the fact. Like, yo, I was tripping, man. Anyway, he says, you were in my neck of the woods and didn't let me make good on our bet to buy you a glass of wine. LOL. Just kidding. So when I come, next time I go to New York, and I'm gonna just throw a pause in there. Next time I go to New York and it's for leisure, I'll make sure I let you know. I'm gonna make sure I let you know. All right. Because you definitely owe me a drink. I want my drink. I earned that one fair and square. We had a ball, man. We had a blast in your neck of the woods, man. New York treated us well. Treated us really well. There was one rude lady that worked at a store, but that's nor here nor there. Everybody was pretty much nice. Nike, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, what's up, Louie T? What's going on, Nike? It's been a while since I've caught a live show. Glad you're here. I want to make sure I watch every vid, but glad I could catch this one. Hope all is well. Likewise, it's never easy. I get that a lot from people like, man, I try to catch you live, but it's always tough. I always tell y'all, get that bread, man, while it's there to be got. If it's hot and it's in the oven and it's baking, go get as much of it as you can while it's there to be got. These videos will be there after the fact. I know live is best. And, you know, it sucks, especially these podcast episodes when you don't catch them, because when you watch them back, we have some pretty interesting discussions. And you're like, damn, I wish I was a part of that discussion. But it's here, right? It'll be here on the playback. So glad you could catch this live. Corey Kidwell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Corey writes, my man Lou, do your thing, dog. Squad up. Really appreciate you, Corey. I got to hit you up too because I got a question. So I got to hit you up, man. We supposed to be trying to come up there tomorrow night, but hopefully I'll be able to. I'm going to call up there tomorrow, try to set something up. But really appreciate you, Corey, man. Rosario Satara Pileski, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, release second edition of my 5th book, man. You are killing the game right now, man. You are moving. It took a while to get that first one out, but now you going, man. You just going. I'm so proud of the progress that you've made, man. Says the UK comedy show directory, another mini book. The front cover is from my dad. Took the picture in 2006. Thanks for the great multitasking commentary shows. And thank you for the support, man. You've been with me for a very long time. And you know what's fun is our journeys have been kind of parallel to one another. I've been, kind of fighting this uphill battle, you know, throughout my journey, and you have as well, right? And you just finally broke through a couple years ago, and now you're just going, bro. Couldn't be more proud of the success that you've seen over the last few years, man. Continue to grind and continue to get it, man. I love it. I love hearing about it. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Twin D, writes, hey, LT, another random thought. Strictly on an ego level, what do you think the prior coaching staff thinks about the way this group cleaned house and seemingly improved on their players / selections? Well, that's commonplace. It's common practice when you get a new regime to come in and clean house. That's just like you said, you're talking about it from the ego standpoint of the guys that aren't here anymore and seeing what's been done. Literally an explosion. Explosives have been planted all around their roster in the facility, and they've detonated it and blown up the entire roster that they constructed here, which was trash, which is why we ended up 4-13. And now they're building it up from the ground. But that happens every time you get a new GM, a new coach, et cetera, et cetera. That's what happens. But to take it a step further, you remember Ronald, right as he, knew the end was near, started saying stupid shit like, hey, when these guys win a Super Bowl, just send me my ring. And, somebody had brought it up a while back. Like, it's almost as if Adam Peters heard that line and was like, bro, we're going to make sure you don't get a goddamn thing. We're going to make sure that all of the dudes that were here because of you are gone and that you can't feel like you have any credit, that you can get because of the success that happens here. Nobody's going to give Ronald 1 ounce of credit for any success that takes place because he didn't leave us with anything. He left us literally in the same spot he found us. We did a complete 360 with Ronald Rivera. When he got here, we had the number 2 pick. We were 3-13. We didn't have a quarterback, and we had a terrible roster. And we had Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Terry McLaurin. He left us. We got the number 2 pick. We were 4-13. We got Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. We did have, when he showed up the first time, Montez Sweat. Don't even have him anymore. We got the number 2 pick. We don't have a quarterback, and the roster was trash, just like he found it. He did nothing. And this whole conversation about him changing the culture, that proved to be a farce as well. And I thought that was the one thing we could give him credit for. Here's the one thing that I did say we could give him credit for. They didn't spend our money frivolously, and they left us in a position where our cap, and they talked about this, and Mark Mayhew is still here, and I got to give him credit for this. They talked about cash to cap, not doing what the Cowboys have done, and we're going to talk about them at the end of the show, the tail end of the show, but not doing what teams like Dallas is notorious for doing, or the Saints are notorious for doing, which puts them in cap purgatory all the time, which is restructuring deals. That puts you in a position where, it's going to give you some breathing space now, but eventually you're going to have to pay for that, right? And so they didn't do that in Washington. The 4 years they were here, now they didn't sign any good players, so it didn't force them to have to, and they didn't have any guys that they had to pay, big money to that forced them to have to make tough decisions, but they did a really good job of not wasting our money. If you're going to suck, at least don't do it. At least do it in a manner that is financially and fiscally responsible. And they did that. I'll give them credit for at least that. But I think Ronald, watching from afar, seeing what's being done, he realizes what's up. Yeah, I think he knows. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. LT writes, Howell is more of a threat to Hurts / Dak than JD / DM. I thought so last year. I thought that was the case last year. I don't think that's the case now. You know, I still think that Sam has a bright future, but he showed a lot of the flaws that people said he had coming out of UNC last year. And I needed him to dispel some of those notions. And I made it abundantly clear. I'm like, Sam, don't let them put you in a situation where they're in a position to replace you. And he could never, like, once shit started going downhill, he proved that he wasn't capable of elevating the team. And they put him in a rough spot. And we've gone through this already. They put him in a bad spot. And I don't know of many quarterbacks that would have come out of that thing alive, but he didn't do himself any favors. That's for sure. Rick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rick writes, May equals Sam Howell. Y'all want to go through that again? How can you say that? How can you say that they're the same quarterback? I'm asking seriously. I want to know why you think they're the same guy, other than the fact that they went to the same school. Why do you think they're the same quarterback? Rick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, if College Lamar was a better passer, he would be JD. I think y'all are really not giving Lamar Jackson enough credit for the playmaker that he was at Louisville. Like, I think some of y'all didn't even watch Lamar at Louisville. I think you're just throwing out stuff because Lamar Jackson was way more dynamic than Jaden Daniels. Like, they're not even close from an athletic profile standpoint. Jaden Daniels looks nothing like Lamar Jackson in terms of, like, first of all, Lamar is dynamic straight north and south or north and east and west. Lamar has moves. He can stop on a dime. Lamar doesn't take big hits. Lamar can extend plays both with his legs and his arm, and he was doing both at Louisville. They're not the same. I don't understand this narrative of if he was a better passer, he would have. No, he wouldn't have been. Because Jaden Daniels can't do the things Lamar Jackson did coming out of Louisville. I'll grant you that pure passer, standing in the pocket, deliver. He's ahead of Lamar, but also Lamar was a junior when he came out. Jaden Daniels is 87 years old, and I'm being funny, right? Like, Jaden Daniels is, somebody said it perfectly. He's played a half a decade of college football. They're not the same. So you can't compare Lamar coming out of college to Jaden Daniels. Just look at it, and I can't say it to you any more clear than this. Take Jaden Daniels after his junior year and put him into the NFL. What do you have? He ain't Lamar Jackson. He ain't winning a Heisman Trophy. He damn sure ain't a day one, probably not a day two pick. Take him after his third season and put him in the league. Lamar was doing shit in his freshman, sophomore, and junior years that Jaden Daniels couldn't even dream of doing until he got to his fifth year of college football. Don't compare the two. They're not the same. That's disrespectful to Lamar. Calvin Krim, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Calvin Krim, writes, Hey, Lou. Are there any quarterbacks currently in the NFL that you trade the number 2 pick straight up for? For me, I counted 5. That's interesting. Says a lot about the current talent and how truly valuable number 2 is. Of course, there are quarterbacks that you do that for. I mean, this is a hypothetical. So you trade, excuse me, you trade for any of those top guys. You trade it for Josh Allen. You trade it for Joe Burrow. Again, assuming he's healthy, which you're going to assume he's healthy. And being that this last injury wasn't a knee or anything, you feel like Burrow will be back and he'll be just fine. You trade him for Burrow, you trade him for Mahomes, you trade him for Allen, you trade him for Herbert. I can't speak for everybody. A lot of people, Herbert's 30 and 32. Okay, guy. Okay, guy. I traded for Herbert. I was like, hey, Mr. JJ McCarthy's the best quarterback I've ever coached. How about you trade him to us for the number 2 pick so you can draft your boy? Huh? How about you trade us Justin Herbert and you take JJ McCarthy since you love him so much? Of course, he's not going to do that. I traded for Lamar Jackson. I traded for Lamar Jackson. I might be missing a name or two, but off the top of the dome, that's probably, what was that, 5 guys? There might have been 6. I don't think there are many more than that, straight up. But again, the other team wouldn't do it straight up. But again, it's a hypothetical. I mean, this pick is very valuable because it wouldn't be as valuable if the quarterbacks weren't as talented. That's what makes back in 2022, when there were no quarterbacks that anybody loved in the first round other than Kenny Pickett, and I don't think he should have been a first rounder either. But he was the one guy that was ready to go, so he was a first rounder. And I think I said, I guess he's a first rounder. The number 2 overall pick wouldn't have been as valuable in that year's draft. It's only valuable now because of the talent that is perceived to be at the top of the draft at the quarterback position. So it is a valuable pick. It is a valuable pick. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, thank you for the super chat, who writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family, and you enjoyed the weekend in New York City. We did, and likewise, I hope your weekend was outstanding. You had a great Easter weekend, and I hope you and the fam are doing well. He says, 2 questions. 1, who do you think will be the Cowboys starting running back this season, i.e. obtaining the draft? And number 2, who is the best team in the AFC North as of now, and why? So I'll start with the Cowboys running back situation. I think they're going to sign either Zeke Elliott or Dalvin Cook. So they have options. Both are available. I prefer them to sign Zeke because he doesn't scare anybody. They're still going to probably draft a running back, just like they had Tony Pollard, but bring Zeke back. You don't have to necessarily. I still think there's a lot left in the Dalvin Cook tank. And if you get him, I think he could still play some good football for somebody. A team like a Dallas, for instance, who has weapons, a solid offensive line, even though they're going to have to do some reshuffling. They lose their center, they lose their left tackle, but they'll figure it out. They're pretty good at figuring out the offensive line thing. But I think it's going to be one of those veterans. Now, if you go into the draft, there are going to be some options for them. I could see the Wisconsin running back being like a really good fit for them. I don't want them getting their hands on anybody with dynamic speed, but that the Wisconsin running back would, I think, be a great fit for them. But we'll see what they ultimately decide to do, because I think they're going to bring a veteran in. I think they feel like they're in a position where they're ready to win now, which they got to be because of Dak's contract situation. I don't know if you have time to invest in a young running back who's going to have to learn the nuances of the game, et cetera, they may be more inclined to bring in a veteran, I think. But we'll see, right? Still think they might take a young back too. But as far as the AFC North is concerned, I'm big on Cincinnati. I told you, had Burrow not gotten hurt, they were going to win that division. They were going to win that game on Thursday Night Football. Burrow was carving them up. When he left the game, they had the lead. He threw a touchdown pass that gave them the lead. They couldn't stop Cincinnati's offense that night. They were going to win that game, and they were getting hot at the right time. Yeah, they had lost to Houston in a shootout, but I believe in Cincinnati, and I believe in Joe Burrow, and they were going to look at what they did with all the injuries that they had and all the different quarterbacks that they shuffled in and out of the lineup, and or not all the quarterbacks. They had Jake Browning, but look at what they did. They fought to the bitter end with Jake Browning at quarterback. So if Burrow was there, I think they would have won that division. So I still think they're the best team in that division. Now, it gets interesting because they still have T. Higgins. They're going to lose Tyler Boyd, who's a free agent, and he's going to sign somewhere else. He's kind of mulling through his options right now. There's no more Joe Mixon. So I want to see the dynamic of the team, because that was a veteran team to begin with. There was some young pieces mixed in and intertwined, but it was a veteran team that was ready to win, and they didn't get it done in that window. And now Joe has been paid, and now you got to start paying some of these other guys, and you may start to lose some of the talent. It'll be interesting to see where they are. I still like Cincinnati, but it's hard to bet against Baltimore, especially adding Derrick Henry. I think that adds another element to their football team, and they're just so good. But you can't discount the loss of Mike McDonald and what that means for them defensively. And Clowney was there, and then they lose Patrick Queen, and don't know what that's going to really mean. But you lose some of those defensive pieces. You lose your defensive coordinator. I want to see what it looks like. But man, adding Derrick Henry, that's a really, really good team offensively with Lamar Jackson and all the weapons that they've surrounded him with. And you add Derrick Henry, that's going to be a fun. And then they're getting the kid back from East Carolina who tore his ACL. Who was playing well. I think there's a chance that the Ravens have a chance to be really good again. So I'll go with the Ravens for now, and I want to see what Cincinnati looks like. But I'm always a Cincinnati Bengals guy. I'm always a Bengals guy because I believe in Joe Burrow. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Double up. I think that's a double up for King of the Bluegrass. I think I'm wrong, but don't worry. Got a double up after that. King of the Bluegrass writes, Ron's plan, folded arms. So one of these numbers here, right? Collecting a check and playing boss man. Ron's plan. It was definitely a flawed plan to begin with, because Ron never should have been in control of personnel. Ron should have only been in control of the team and worrying about, what was best for them. He should have never been in control of personnel too. But that's where we were. We were in a desperate situation. Nobody else was going to give Ronald that type of power, which when I look back on why he took this job, I think that was the intrigue behind him, because there were other opportunities. Dallas had a vacancy at the time. The Browns had a vacancy at the time. The Giants and his boy Dave Gettleman was there at the time. They had a vacancy, and he could have just went to the Giants, and Dave Gettleman would have hired him, and he said he would have hired him, and he actually said, I made a mistake not being aggressive and going after Ron Rivera. So the intrigue was nobody else was going to give Ronald Rivera the opportunity to be in charge and have a coach-centric approach where he was overseeing the entire operation. Nobody else was going to give him that type of power, and rightfully so. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, King of the Bluegrass, writes, anybody question that Lamar at Louisville? Watch the Florida State game from 2016. Hashtag beast mode. I remember that game. That was the coming out party. They beat the break, and that Florida State team was actually pretty good, because remember, Florida State went through this malaise where they were just awful. But remember, in that time, they were in that Jimbo Fisher kind of ascension. They had just won a national championship with Jameis Winston maybe 2 years prior in 2014. Winston didn't win it the following year in 2015, and then he went to the NFL and ended up in the drafts. I might have my years mixed up, and Winston might have won it in 13, and then they had the 14 season, and then he came out. Him and Mariota were in the 15 draft. But what I'm telling you is Florida State was really good in those days, and Jimbo Fisher had that program buzzing again. So it wasn't the Florida State that fell on hard times and was trash for like 7 years in a row, and now they're back up. Florida State is, they've gotten back to where they were once upon a time with Norvell, but back in those days they were nice, like Bobby Bowden nice, and Louisville and Lamar Jackson carved those boys up. Another game, if you want to see Lamar Jackson in all of his splendor, go watch that Clemson game. Go watch that Clemson game from that same season. That's when Deshaun Watson was at the peak of his superpowers at Clemson. And Clemson was one of the best teams in the nation. He went to Death Valley and went toe-to-toe with Deshaun Watson when Deshaun Watson was at his peak powers. Like, don't talk to me about Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels being on the same plane, because Lamar was doing that as a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken. Lamar was doing this as a sophomore. Don't talk to me about them being the same, because they're not. They're not. Rick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rick writes, JD5 is tall, so he looks slower. That ain't got nothing to do with it. If guys that are tall look fast. If you fast, you fast. He's fast. I'm not telling you he's fast, but he's an upright runner. That's number one. And he's not blazing fast. He's straight line speed fast, and he's fast. He can run. Don't get me wrong. But he doesn't have any wiggle, is what I'm telling you. He's not elusive side to side. Okay. He says JD5 is tall, so he looks slower, but probably just as fast. And he has the clutch gene. Check out ASU versus Oregon. In my opinion, Herbert's style doesn't win games. Well, give me the quarterback that's averaging, having his team score roughly 30 points a game. Give me that guy. That style works for me. I'll take that guy. Just let's not have the defense give up 34 every game. You know how many times Herbert's gone 36 of 44, 30 for 38 for 347, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they still lose the game, or they barely win the game. You know how many times he's done that? I like Justin Herbert a lot, and I think he's an elite quarterback. And you may find that out now with Harbaugh. It might look a little different. Harbaugh is going to put a priority on running the football, but it wouldn't shock me if the Chargers are 12-5 this year or next year, and you're saying, and people are singing a different tune. Those same people who are saying Justin Herbert's 30-32, they won't be saying that shit in 2 years with him and Jim Harbaugh in LA. We'll see what happens. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. JB writes, Lou, how are you, sir? I'm doing well, JB. How about yourself? Says, hey, man, where's the best spot for Frank Gore Jr.? I don't know. They're going to be – somebody's going to give him some run just because of who his dad is. Like, I'm hearing that there's a buzz for Christian McCaffrey's brother And sometimes you just get the benefit of the doubt because your family member is that good, right? And Frank is beloved in the league and had a Hall of Fame career. And not that his son isn't good. He's solid, but he ain't his daddy. But somebody's gonna give him an opportunity just off the strength of who his dad is. Just like Christian McCaffrey's brother, the receiver from Rice, and he's not bad. He's actually pretty solid, but he's gonna get a look-see because his brother's CMC, right? Frank Gore Jr. is gonna get some run somewhere. I don't know where. I can't tell you where the best fit for him is gonna be. I feel like he'll end up somewhere like Indy. That's the kind of place he would end up. That's the kind of running back the Colts end up having on their roster, it feels like. But we'll see where he ends up. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel. Writes, sup, Lou? What's going on, video channel? What is JJ McCarthy's ceiling and floor? To me, his ceiling is that of JJ McCarthy's ceiling. That's a great question. Because I think he's better than Alex Smith. And I know a lot of people are comping him to Alex Smith. Who did I comp him to? I'm trying to remember. Because I think I gave him a better comp than Alex Smith. Alex Smith is low-hanging fruit to me because Alex Smith, to me, didn't take enough risk. And I think JJ McCarthy takes more risk than Alex Smith does or did. But I see him on that same plane, but I see him a step above Alex Smith. I don't want to pull out my notebook. I might have to. I don't want to do it. I'm trying to think, who did I comp him to? I can't. I'm going to have to do it. So I comped him to Mitchell Trubisky. And here's the thing about Mitchell Trubisky that people forget. And this is why I like the comp when I made it. Is because Trubisky was an athlete, is an athlete. Trubisky has a live arm and can make some throws. And people forget Mitchell Trubisky led the Bears to an NFC North title. Took them to a playoff game. They should have beat the Eagles. The field goal kicker missed the kick, doinked it off the upright. They would have won the game, and who knows what would have happened. Mitchell Trubisky took them back to the playoffs again. It wasn't pretty that year, but they got in. And I remember Javon Wims dropping a dime of a pass again, and this was against the Saints. They went to the playoffs, and Trubisky didn't play well, but he didn't play well after Javon Wims dropped the touchdown. And it was a dime, about a 50-yard dime on a deep post in the back of the end zone. And he dropped it in the bucket, and Javon Wims dropped the ball. And from that point, it felt like he just never recovered. And they kind of just went through the motions, lost the game, something like, it was a boring game. It was like 19-10. And he went out with kind of a whimper. But I said all that to say this. Mitchell Trubisky has all the gifts and the tools, but he's more of a game manager type of quarterback. The problem with Mitchell Trubisky was he's going to turn it over at some point. And that's the thing McCarthy doesn't do. So you eliminate that, and Mitchell Trubisky had a high ceiling. And I think McCarthy's ceiling is more that of Mitchell Trubisky, which is why Trubisky went second overall than it is Alex Smith, who went number one overall. But you knew there were limitations. You knew you couldn't win a Super Bowl with Alex Smith. You can win a Super Bowl with JJ McCarthy. You're just going to have to put a team around him. He's not going to put a team on his back. Mitchell Trubisky wasn't capable of putting a team on his back either. So I think his ceiling is, and to me, Trubisky doesn't have the greatest statistical success in the NFL, but I think he gets a bad rap because it didn't work and he was overdrafted and he went in front of guys like Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. But his record overall isn't too bad. His touchdown to interception ratio isn't terrible. I think that if you could find a better version of Alex Smith, that's what JJ McCarthy's ceiling is. It's not Alex Smith, because Alex Smith would win you regular season games, but he wasn't going to win you playoff games. I think JJ McCarthy is capable of winning you playoff games because he can make some of those throws that Alex Smith wasn't even willing to risk to take. But I don't see him being able to strap a team to his back. The floor for JJ McCarthy is, because I think he's going to be a good quarterback no matter what. Worst case, he'll be a very solid NFL backup quarterback. Worst case scenario, you know what? You know who he could be? You know who JJ McCarthy could end up being? He could end up being like Andy Dalton. I could see that. Andy Dalton had a good career, regular season success. His problem was he couldn't win in the postseason because he wasn't capable of strapping a team to his back. I see him as that, like in that Derek Carr, Andy Dalton type of mold. His floor, however, to me is, trying to think of a competent NFL backup that you feel good about. You know who a better ceiling would be? I just thought about this. I don't love this comp necessarily because the guy isn't mobile that I'm comping him to, but Jared Goff, super accurate underneath, has enough arm talent to get those tight window throws and on that second level. Goff, you don't see Jared Goff going deep a whole hell of a lot because that's not his strength, right? You don't see him pushing the ball vertically. He was great in that Rams offense because it was a lot of short and intermediate throws. He's great in that Lions offense because a lot of short and intermediate throws. There's not a lot of deep shots for Jared Goff because that's not his thing. That's not JJ McCarthy's thing either. But he's surgical in that short to intermediate and manage a team. Can't put a team on his back. I think McCarthy separates himself slightly from Jared Goff in the athleticism department because he can run. He can make things happen when the play breaks down. But Jared Goff has led a team to the Super Bowl. He's led another team to the championship game. Should have led two different teams to the Super Bowl. I think that's the type of player JJ McCarthy could be. Now, his floor is that of an NFL backup, and I'm trying to think of a good quality NFL backup quarterback that you like, that is just really solid. You know what you're getting. You know what you're signing up for. That's what he strikes me. I don't think he's going to fail in this league. He'll be at worst a core backup quarterback in the NFL. I can't think of the floor, because even a guy like Alex Smith, his floor isn't low because he's going to take care of the ball and he's going to win football games, and he's not going to put the ball in harm's way. He's going to make all the right decisions, and you're going to win regular season games like that. So the floor is extremely high. Like, JJ McCarthy is a safe pick. That's why a lot of people like him, because you can win football games with guys like that. Now, how far is that quarterback going to be able to take you is the question. That's the $1 million question, which is why JJ McCarthy is cool when you're drafting 13th, 17th, 25th. He's cool. I love it. I don't love it at 2. I don't love it at 3. I don't love it at 5. I don't love it at 7. Because when you're drafting in the top 10, you should be swinging for the fences. And that's not what JJ McCarthy is to me. The Real Benjamin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Real Benjamin writes, no coach taking Herbert over Lamar. Sorry, nope. That's false. There are a lot of coaches that would prefer Justin Herbert and his ability to throw from the pocket over Lamar Jackson and his ability to run. Not everybody's cup of tea is Justin Herbert, but trust me, I'd venture to say that there are probably more coaches in the NFL, offensive coaches, I'm talking about. Defensive coaches would take Lamar Jackson because they know how tough it is to game plan to stop him. Offensive coaches want the guy that can throw from the pocket. So I'd venture to say more, if you polled all 32 GMs in the league and asked them which quarterback would they rather have, I think more would say Herbert than Lamar Jackson. But it's not going to be like 24 for Herbert, 8 for Jackson. It'll be like 17 for Herbert and 15 for Jackson, 18 for Herbert, 14 for Jackson. It'll be something like that. It'll be close. But I think you may have, and it could be the other way. It could be 18 for Jackson, it'll be close. But I think more coaches would probably take Herbert than Lamar Jackson. That's just my guess. I could be wrong about that. Again, we'll never know. We'll never know. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, hypothetical. Place Virginia Tech Mike Vick in this draft. Where does he go? Number 1 overall. Are you kidding me? Again, people get lost. See, I'm old enough to remember 2000, 2001 Mike Vick. And if I'm not mistaken, what then was the Big East. I don't even think Virginia Tech was in the ACC then. I think they were in the Big East then. And I'm old enough to remember what Mike Vick, and for one, he's from the 757, so we were all over Mike Vick. Like, he was like Allen Iverson on the football field to us. So people forget what Vick was doing, what he did in that bowl game against Florida State and Peter Warrick, and people forget how good Peter Warrick was. Are you kidding me? Peter Warrick was Reggie Bush before Reggie Bush. Like, people forget how good Peter Warrick was as a college football player coming out. And what Mike Vick did to them in that bowl game, Mike Vick was spinning on dudes before, like, the spin move with quarterbacks was a thing. Like, Vick was sick. Vick would have been the number 1 pick in this draft. He would have been number 1, no questions asked in this draft. But there's not many drafts that Michael Vick wouldn't have been number 1 overall. His athleticism, speed, arm talent, all of that off the charts. Like, there's a reason why it was called the Vick experience, the Michael Vick experience. that was a real thing. When he came into the league, played for the Falcons, that was a real thing. I'm just glad I got to witness it live once in my life. You know, I went to a Falcons game and got to watch him play, and that shit is incredible. When he takes off and runs with that bitch like a loaf of bread, I just remember, just go watch the Vikings game. I want to say it was his second year in the league, might have been second year, third year. Just go watch that Vikings game. That overtime run where he splits the 2 defenders and scores the touchdown to win the game. Come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. JB, Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. JB writes, Lou, with all the weapons that Pittsburgh has, who's the starting QB? It's gonna be Russell Wilson. It's gonna be Russell Wilson. Like, I know they didn't guarantee him anything, but he's the veteran. They're gonna give him every out. He's gonna have to literally go and fall flat on his face, and Justin Fields will have to go out there and kill it for it to flip flop. I think they're gonna give Russell Wilson every opportunity. He's gonna get the first crack, and if it doesn't work out, then you have Justin Fields as a fallback plan. But it'll be Russell Wilson. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JB writes, Lou, Washington has made a lot of moves this offseason. Do you think they might still trade in the draft? Yeah, I do. Not at 2, but I do expect them to be active in this draft. How active, we'll find out. But the beauty of where their draft capital is, it allows them to be very active if they so choose. You know, move up, move back. They've got every opportunity to do so with the draft capital that they have in the second and third rounds. That day 2 activity, I think, is going to be where you see them be aggressive, and it may set them up to be aggressive in day 3. Right now, if they just make their selections, I don't see them being aggressive in day 3. You know, you've got 2 5th rounders and 2 5th rounders and a 7th rounder, if I'm not mistaken. Right now, if my memory serves me correct, you don't have a 4th and you don't have a 6th. If you're aggressive in day 2, it may allow you to pick up a 4th. It may allow you to I would prefer them package up picks and get to the 6th and just be done. I'm not a big 7th round guy. Dax Milne and James Smith-Williams, and I mean, you can find Cam Curl. We did find Cam Curl in the 7th round, but you're more likely to find Shaka Toney in the 7th round. I'm good. Like, let me get the 6th round picks. But we got a different guy turning in the cards now. I trust him more than I trusted any of the dudes we've had in the past. So maybe those 7th rounders aren't throwaways anymore. We'll see. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, my JJ comp is Tannehill. That's not a bad one. That's not a bad one. I think Tannehill was a little bit different in the sense that he was a former wide receiver, so he saw the game a little bit differently. And I think he was a better athlete, 1, and 2, I think he was more willing to take shots down the field. But I think that's a great comp because here's the problem with the Tannehill comparison, though. Tannehill will turn it over. And that's not who J.J. McCarthy has been. Right? He just doesn't turn it over. So you have to find a guy that takes care of the football more than Tannehill, does. But I like that comp. It's not that, to me, that's not that far off. I just don't think Tannehill takes care of it good enough. The way that J.J. McCarthy, like guys like McCarthy and Alex Smith and Jared Goff, they're going to err on the side of caution more so than put the ball in harm's way and take a risk, whereas Tannehill is willing to take that risk, whether for better or for worse. Rick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rick writes, sorry, Lou, I know the NFL likes the prototypical looking quarterback, but times have changed and Herbert really isn't like that. Let's admit, same with May. The times do change in the NFL, but what never changes is the ability to have to be able to throw the football from the pocket. Herbert is a good enough athlete, and he can do everything that you need him to do on a football field. And that'll never change. Throwing from the pocket will never be something that goes out of style. That's all. Like Adam Peters said, being mobile is great, and you want that shit, you need it. in today's NFL. But at the end of the day, you better be able to throw from the pocket. He made that abundantly clear. He said, you still win by throwing the football from the pocket. And it's not, to me, a coincidence that Lamar Jackson, who has won 2 league MVPs, one, I think, unanimously, it's not a surprise that he hasn't won anything yet. I don't think that's on accident. But again, we'll see. Because Justin Herbert has never been on a team the caliber of the teams Lamar Jackson has been on. That team Lamar was on last year had no business not making it to the Super Bowl. None. No business not beating the Chiefs. No business losing to the Chiefs. They had no business losing to the Chiefs. They should have beaten them. And they had the superior team. And Lamar just didn't play well. He didn't play well. Calvin Krim, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, I didn't realize May had 78 total touchdowns the last 2 years. Exact same as Jaden Daniels. And the thing that I always say is people compare the two because they're coming out in the same draft class, but they're not the same because Drake May has 2 years of starting experience. He's 21 years old. Jaden Daniels is 24 years old, and he started 5 college football seasons. Go look at Jaden Daniels' numbers through his first 3 years of college ball, and go look at his statistics after 2 years of being a starter. Now, he started as a true freshman, but look at his – you could even go and take it a step further and give him 3 years. Let him start his first 3 years, right? Go look at those numbers when he was 21 and go look at what he was doing and then look at Drake May. And I think it's an apples to apples comparison because it's not like he was in the SEC then. He was in the Pac-12 at ASU. So, again, and it's not like he didn't play with guys that were talented. Brandon Ayuk was his number 1 wide receiver when he was at ASU. He had talent there. So, there's no excuse, right? He evolved over time and he got better with more and more reps and snaps. That's what we expect Drake May to do, which is why I think if you're banking on the upside, that's why you go with May. That's what I've been advocating, right? He's young and there's still plenty of room for growth, and he has all of the skills that you need to see that jump, that Josh Allen-like leap. But again, will it happen? We'll see. Rick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Rick writes, Lou, would you mind doing a call-in show soon? I do those from time to time. I try to steer clear of those because people don't follow the rules. And I don't want to be an asshole, but people don't follow the rules. You know, you get certain people on and they want to talk for 12 minutes and it just becomes too much. You know, you're trying to get them off, but they like, yeah, and one more thing. And then that one more thing turns into one more thing. And then, you know, next thing you know, they hijacking the line. And so, yeah, no, I do those from time to time, but I steer clear of those. I try to steer clear of those. Every so often I'll do it, though. You know, every so often. Smack City. Been a member for 20 months, almost at that 2-year anniversary. Truly appreciate you, Smack City, who writes, the odds have shifted to May being the second pick. This is what happens. This is the song and dance that goes on during this time of the year, right? Starts out with May being number 2, then it goes to Jaden Daniels, and then JJ McCarthy starts to ease up, and that's what happened after his pro day, and he made a massive push, and May started to drop, and oh my God, Drake May is potentially going to go to the Vikings, who are going to trade up to get him, and I'm like, what's going on here, man? Like, you know, Chris Sims, and this guy's a project, and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, what are we doing right now? Let's not overthink this, okay? Let's not let's not talk ourselves into doing something crazy here. It's Drake May or it's Jaden Daniels. Let's not overthink this. Let's not reinvent the wheel and try to do something so outlandish and creative that we mess around and screw the pooch on this one, right? Every year, and I talk about this just about when you have this many prospects at the quarterback position, one of them is going to be dissected and picked apart, and people are going to try to find a reason to not like that guy. It was CJ Stroud and Will Levis last year. In that 2021 class with all those guys, it was Trey Lance and it was Mac Jones and Justin Fields that were all kind of like jumbled up there together, and like, Lawrence and Wilson had separated themselves, and people were picking apart Trey Lance. Only 1 year of starting experience, this, that, and the third. How's he going to handle adversity? He never lost a college football game. He played in, he didn't play D1 ball. How's all this going to affect him, right? And Mac Jones, same thing. Only 1 year true starting experience at Alabama, played with significantly more talent than the opposition, threw to wide open receivers, this, that, and the third. Like, you pick guys apart, right? That guy's been Drake May this year. He's been the one picked apart tirelessly. And again, all within reason. The tape is uneven, so it makes it easy. He's an easy target. But I've done this long enough to know that you got to be able to see past some of that stuff and understand, there are reasons for everything. We could talk about those reasons. We don't need to, but there are reasons for everything. He didn't have the offensive line that Jaden Daniels had. He didn't have the receivers that Jaden Daniels had, right? So there's that. He dealt with a different offensive coordinator. He didn't have the same offensive coordinator that he did when he exploded in his redshirt, freshman year that he did in his sophomore season, right? His second year of starting. He didn't have the same coordinator. So we can sit here and pick apart little things, but we don't need to do that. He was inconsistent. The tape was up and down. The footwork needs work, etc. The throwing motion was a bit elongated. There are things that he needed to work on. But he's toolsy. I said the same thing about Justin Herbert back in 2020. He's toolsy. I would always finish. I would go on this rant about Herbert, why I don't want him. He's not a leader, and he played in the Pac-12. He was throwing to open receivers. I don't see it from him. Yada, 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 yada. But I would always finish with, but he's toolsy. Same thing here. He's toolsy. David Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. David Brown writes, Lou, what's up? What's going on, David? What if we take May? Would you be okay with seeing Mariota for a year so May can develop? I'm okay with whatever they decide is the right move. If they draft Drake May and they get him in OTAs and they're working with him in the offseason program and they're like, yeah, this kid's got some work to do from a fundamental standpoint. Let's fix him up first, right? Let's get the footwork right. Let's shorten that release. Let's get him where we want him first before we trot him out there, right? It's like buying this car, right? This vehicle. It's a beautiful vehicle. But you want to put some other parts in it because you think you can take this vehicle to the next level. So before you take it out of the garage and take it for a spin, you got it in the garage, you're working on it, and you don't want anybody to see it because it's not a finished product yet. You're going to do a paint job, all that good stuff. Put that new engine in there and really give it some power and put some wheels on it, all that good stuff. And then when it's a finished product, you want to turn it loose, take it for a spin. I wouldn't mind if they did that. There are a lot of fans that would lose their shit if they did, right, David? A lot of fans would go nuts if we spent the number 2 overall pick on a guy that wasn't ready to play, because that's not often the case in the NFL anymore. I told you we live in a microwavable society. Instant gratification is the cool option of the day, right? I need it now. I have to have it right now. And if I don't get it right now, we have a problem. And the good thing is the fans aren't in control. We're not in control. They are. And if they deem that Mariota starting at the beginning of the season is the right move because they don't think he's ready, great. Do what you got to do. I'd prefer him to go in, take this thing by the horns, and they say, no, this kid's ready. He's going to make some mistakes along the way, but he's ready. I prefer that, but if they say, nah, he's not ready, fine. That's cool. I'd be willing. This is what you have to understand. There's no way Marcus Mariota's coming in here and starting 17 games, okay? He might start the first 6, 7, 8. You know, we see where the bye week lands. If we got a week's, because we're due for an early season bye. We've had the latest bye that an NFL team could possibly have each of the last 2 seasons. So we're due for a week 4, 5, 6, 7 bye. I don't think our bye week is going to be later than week 7 this year. It's going to be within the first 4 weeks of a bye, which I think the first bye week start to take place is week 4. I think you're going to see us somewhere between week 4 to 7, bye week wise. And let's say the bye week is week 7 or 6. Mariota starts to the bye. We come off the bye, and I think that's when you see the rookie, and you go from there, right? Worst case scenario. Can't see Mariota starting the entire season because we're not going to be good enough. The only way Mariota starts the entire season and keeps him at bay is if we're winning. That's not going to happen if Mariota's starting. So by week 6 or 7, they're going to put the rookie in there. That's more likely than not how this goes. But yeah, I'd be fine with Mariota starting if that was the case, if they didn't think he was ready. I want what's best for the development of the rookie quarterback, no matter who it is, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, whomever it is. I want what's best for his development. And if him sitting to start the season off is best for his development, cool. I'm all for it. Rick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rick writes, the school matters. May should have went to Alabama. Sure, the school matters. That does matter. But you understand that his brother went to UNC, won a national championship. His family's from Carolina. He probably always wanted to go to Carolina. So he was going to Carolina. You know, that was going to be where he ended up going to school. But yeah, the school matters. But it's not like he played, you know, in the MAC. He played in a Power 5 conference. It's the ACC. Take it with a grain of salt. But still, it ain't the Big Ten or it ain't the SEC. I get it. But it's still Power 5 football. Alex Bonfield. Been a member for 18 months. Really appreciate you. Alex writes, I can see how May fits the mold of a Herbert or Allen. There's a picture in my mind. I like JD, but I don't have a vision of how he can be as great. I mean, I can picture how he can be as great. He can be a dynamic force like Jalen Hurts was a couple seasons back. I can envision that. He's not as physical a runner as Hurts is, obviously. So you don't get the advantage there. But what he lacks in physicality, he can make up for in speed. And he's got a similar arm to Jalen Hurts. The difference is we don't have that offensive line that's going to sit back there and give him 25 years to throw the football. So, and we don't have the targets like the Eagles do yet either. We're hoping to build our, skill positions into that. But I could see the path. Absolutely. I can. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, I watched Drake throw 50 yards on the run across his body with touch for a touchdown, not a prototypical quarterback. You see those types of throws with him, and those are the wild throws we talk about with Drake May, which is why we talk about the talent that exists there. For every one of those, there's a miss, though, right? And that gets you scratching your head like, bro, if you can make that type of throw, why can't you make this layup? Why can't you make this wide open three that you've shot in practice a million times? Now you're in the game and you get an open look. I need you to knock that down. Why can't you make it? And that's why people are all over the map on Drake May, is because he'll make that wild throw, thread the needle between two defenders up the seam, and you go, wow, you couldn't have walked up and placed that ball in the hands of his receiver any better. And then he'll miss a 12-yard out cut and sail it over the head of his receiver. You go, what? And he's open, right? Like, what are you doing, bro? Or you got an in-breaking route and he's throwing the ball behind the receiver and he's got to adjust to make the catch instead of catching it in stride and running after the catch. And you go, come on, bro. There was another 15 yards of space there with a catch after run, or run after catch, excuse me. If you just put that ball out in front of him so he can run and after the catch. And those are the ones that leave you scratching your head. And all of that can be fixed. That's the thing, is it's not broken. It can be fixed. DMV Bay, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, in classic Washington fashion, I can see us screwing up the number 2 pick and picking the wrong QB. I just have a feeling you're stuck on how things used to be done here. But you're not going to stop feeling like that until they change the narrative. So I get it. But I'm not putting that out in the atmosphere. I'm not putting the bad juju and the bad vibes of the last group under Dan Snyder for the past 25 years on this new group who's brought in this fresh air, right? This breath of fresh air and this new sense of life and hope. I'm not putting that on them. They're going to have to get it wrong on their own multiple times for me to have that feeling of, oh, here we go again. Same old Redskins / football team / Commanders. Not doing that in year one of this new group. Coach T. Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, hey, Lou, what's up, coach? That Drake May and JD TD total is false. Drake May, 62 pass, 16 run. JD, 92 pass, 34 run in the last 3 seasons. DM had 78. JD had 94. That the person said the last 2 seasons, though. Last 2. He said both of them had 78. And because Drake May's only started for 2 seasons. So I don't know what the number is. I would guess that it's probably more closer to 78 for both of them, because remember, up until this past year, I don't think Jaden Daniels had a season in which he had over 20 touchdowns passing. It was always 12, 16, 18. So 40 was an outburst for him. I mean, he never had anything even remotely close to this. So I think 30 touchdowns. What did he account for this year? 50-something touchdowns, 40 passing, and probably another 10, 11, 12 rushing. That put him at 26 last year. That sounds about right. Probably had like 18 touchdowns passing and another 8 or 9 rushing last year. That sounds about right. 78 probably for both of them. He didn't say 3 seasons. He said the last 2 seasons. Drake May totaled 78 touchdowns the last 2. You said that. And I think Jaden Daniels probably has 78 as well over the last 2 years. Rick, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rick writes, UNC doesn't develop quarterbacks as well. Again, you can't scout the helmet. Because if you're going with that logic, then you can't draft Caleb Williams. When's the last time USC delivered a good quarterback in the NFL? I'll wait. A lot of them have come through here. I know the last one that was any good. Do you? If that's the logic you're going with, that UNC doesn't develop quarterbacks, then don't draft Caleb Williams. So I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to that. David Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I could see May sitting for half the year. We finished with the top 5 pick and Daniels wins rookie of the year, but May's ceiling ends up being higher. That could definitely happen. And again, that's the thing that you have to guard against is the instant gratification. I talked about this very thing last night is you can't be swayed by instant gratification. If you're looking for the ultimate payoff, which is to win a Super Bowl, and not saying that Jaden Daniels can't provide that for you, but ultimately, Jaden Daniels may come in and have a more immediate impact. Okay. But when it's all said and done, if Jaden Daniels ends up being, let me ask you this. Would you rather have Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen? And I'm not saying that either one of these quarterbacks is going to turn into either one of those quarterbacks. But just ask yourself, because Lamar Jackson ended up starting in his rookie season and took the Baltimore Ravens to the playoffs while Josh Allen struggled in his rookie season. And by year 2, Lamar Jackson was league MVP and Allen was just getting his team to the playoffs and losing to the Texans, if I'm not mistaken. So which would you prefer? By year 3, Allen looked like the guy that was going to win a Super Bowl, and he still may, but which one would you rather have? And that's what I'm saying is you can't let the instant gratification of what he could be in his rookie season, he being Jaden Daniels, outweigh what Drake May could be in 2 or 3 years. Because what you get out of Jaden Daniels in year 1 and 2 might be the same thing you get out of him in year 3 and 4. And I'm not saying he can't grow as a player, but I've said this already. I don't think his ceiling is as high. So anyway, I digress. I could see that happening. You know, May doesn't start the first portion of the year, you know, plays well, but is up and down in his rookie season. Meanwhile, you know, Jaden Daniels ends up being a stud and everybody's like, see. That would suck ass because I wouldn't waver and I wouldn't even blink, but there's going to be a lot of fans freaking out if that happens. This has to work. Whatever happens, our fan base is so fickle and broken right now. Whatever they do it to needs to work almost immediately, but I'm not even putting that on them. Kevin, been a member for 3 months. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly, or thank you for being a member for 3 months. Who writes 6 QBs and 3 won't live up. My guess is JD, Caleb, and JJ. 3 won't live up, and your guess is the 3 that won't live up to the hype are Caleb, JD, and JJ. Okay. You're probably right on if 6 go in the first round, that number might be closer to 4. 4 of them probably won't pan out, and only 2 of them will. That's the likelihood. If you hit at a 50% hit rate with these 6 guys in the first round, if 3 of them turn out to be good, that's a damn good draft class of quarterbacks. You know, that's a damn good draft. Because when you look at 2018, Allen and Jackson both are really good. Standout quarterbacks, top 5 quarterbacks in the league. And then Mayfield isn't in that same conversation, but he's good. enough. He's been to the playoffs with 2 different teams, won a playoff game with 2 different teams. He qualifies as a good quarterback in that class. The rest of them don't. Darnold stinks and is a career backup now, and Rosen's been out of the league. That's a successful draft. 2020 is the poster child. That's the draft you're aiming for, because Burrow is good. Herbert is good. Tua now is good. Jordan Love, it looks like he's going to be legit and the real deal. And then Jalen Hurts in the second round looks like he's really good. That's 5 quarterbacks. That rarely happens. 4 in the first round, 5 overall. That's crazy talk. We'll see what happens. Airborne J, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Drake May equals Wentz. You know you see the similarities, Lou. I don't see the similarities. One, the thing that I could never know about Carson Wentz was how mentally fragile he was. I don't see that mental fragility with Drake May, right? I don't see that. He doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to wilt under pressure, or, you know, things get tough and he shrinks. So I don't see that at all right now. But if you're talking about, and I mean, remember, Carson Wentz was 6'5", or is 6'5", 235. It's arm talent wise, yeah, you could see it. Wentz could throw it. From when Wentz first came in the league, he was athletically gifted as hell, right? The injuries did a number on him and made him, you know, look like he was running with a refrigerator on his back. But early Carson, we all saw it. He used to torture our ass. Yeah, some of that is similar for sure. But up here, I don't think it's the same. And that's very important at the quarterback position. Anyway, I digress. So that was a spirited debate. Let's get to the final segment of the show. And of course, that's garbage time. So I want to play you a clip from Adam Schefter. You know, he does a weekly spot on the Pat McAfee show. And he was talking about Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott and the situation the Cowboys find themselves in. We heard a week ago that the Cowboys and Dak have mutually agreed to just play the season out, see what happens. And that's a dangerous game that Dallas is playing. And you're going to hear why it's a dangerous game, and we'll talk about it on the other side. Take a listen to Adam Schefter talking about the situation the Cowboys find themselves in with Dak Prescott.
Time to do a deal with Dak was before free agency, and they didn't do that, so there was no cap savings. So if they wanted to go get some of these marquee free agents that were out there, they're gone. They're off the street. So now they're in a situation with Dak going into the last year of his deal. He's got a $55 million cap number. If he leaves after this year, the dead cap money charge is $95 million that they're going to have to spread out.
Jeez! Now, which would be a new NFL record, even though
$95 million dead cap, and he leaves, and no trade clause, no tag clause. So when you're going into the last year of contract, he now becomes the 2024-25 version of Kirk Cousins. And Dak, to me, is a really good quarterback. So if and when he becomes a free agent next year, Dallas may want him back, but there might be a quarterback-needy team. Giants, Commanders, who knows? Like, we could go through the list right now. There'll be no shortage of suitors for Dak Prescott as a true unrestricted free agent on the open market. Like,
now, so there are some irregularities in what was said. I'm going to clean some of that up for you, but the first thing I do have to address is, hey, don't bring us up in that shit. We got the number 2 overall pick. We finna take a quarterback. Don't put us in that. Now, you want to bring the Giants up? They might not have a quarterback next year. They roll with Daniel Jones and they bypass quarterback this year. Then they may be in that Dak Prescott sweepstakes next year. Don't put us in that shit. We about to have ourselves a quarterback. Whether he's good or not, we don't know. But we won't know for sure next year when Dak potentially is a free agent. Don't put us in that shit, man. But that said, he said that if Dallas were to lose Dak next year, they would be on the hook for $95 million, which that's an asinine number. I mean, just to put it in proper perspective, the Broncos essentially paid Russell Wilson $84 million to get lost. And then they said, to hell with it. We'll eat it. That's inaccurate. So, and I was struggling with like 95 million. You telling me his cap hit would be $95 million next year if he walked away? There's no way, right? And there isn't. So what Schefter did incorrectly there was he combined this year's cap hit and next year's cap hit. So I told you Dallas is one of those teams that restructures contracts so that they can sign other players, and it puts you in a great position initially, but it's like taking out a loan. It gives you that relief that you need temporarily, but eventually you got to pay that shit back, and you got to pay it back with interest. So eventually it ain't going to be, unless you take that money out, get that loan, and then you flip that money and you turn it into this great wealth of resources that allows you to pay that back with interest and still have money left over. Is not a good trade-off. It's like getting one of those payday loans. It gives you a bit of breathing space, but you're going to pay for that shit, right? You put a lien on your car and, you take out one of those car loans. Yeah, that shit, one of those title loans, that shit's going to come back to bite you in the ass, right? That's what restructuring is like in the NFL. And so Dallas did that with Dak, and it's $55 million cap hit this year. Second only to Deshaun Watson, 63 with the Browns. Now, next year, they can't use the franchise tag on Dak. He has a no trade clause, so none of that is going down. If he walks away in free agency, Dallas is on the hook for $40 million, which is still a hell of a lot of money. Now, it's less than the 55 that they're paying him this year, but it's still $40 million for a guy that's no longer under contract and playing elsewhere is a lot of damn money. So the Cowboys have put themselves in a pretty bad spot. But letting him play this contract out is interesting. They're playing Russian roulette. I mean, they're playing a nasty, dangerous game of craps. And if they crap out next year, and all it takes is for one team now, Dak seems like a good soldier. Like, I don't think he wants to leave Dallas. He's got a good, comfy, cozy job. I've already said there's no more lucrative job in the NFL than being the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. You can be mediocre. You don't have to win anything. Just be solid. And there's a lot of perks that come with being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, just look at Tony Romo. What he'd ever win in the playoffs, Really successful regular season quarterback. What'd he ever win? He's got Skechers commercials and, got the job immediately after retiring right in the booth in the number one job at CBS. I mean, again, excellent. Look at that. What has he won in the playoffs? What has he done? Not a damn thing. But he's got Campbell's soup commercials, Oreo commercials, you name it, sleep mattress commercial, you name it. He's got all of that shit. So, again, I don't know if he wants to leave Dallas. He's been heavily scrutinized in Dallas. You know what comes with that job and, what it entails. But similar to what we saw with Kirk Cousins, there's always a team out there looking at your stuff, man. And if Dak Prescott, I remember a lot of fans going to misremember this, But I remember a few years back when he got the franchise tag slapped on him and there was a chance that he would be available. I knew a lot of Washington fans. So it was like, yo, let me at him. Let me at him. I'll take him. You don't want him? Let me get him. So a lot of fans out there of other teams that look at Dak and say, we could do a hell of a lot worse. Our situation been ass for years. Dak gives us a chance to win right now. And so let's say the Raiders, end up not in an advantageous situation this year, quarterback-wise. And they bypass on quarterback and they don't end up getting anything this year worth having. And then they still got all this talent. They still think they're in a position to win. You don't think the Raiders are going to throw money at this man next year? You don't think teams like that feel like, hey, we just need a quarterback? Yeah, right. So it's an interesting dynamic because this is what you traded for Trey Lance for if you're Dallas. If Dak leaves, you still have a guy that gives you a shot, but it's a dangerous game to play, man. It really is. They're in a bad cap spot, are the Cowboys. Dak's playing on the last year of a deal. They're going to let him play it out. They can't franchise tag him. He has a no trade clause, so they have no cards. They hold no cards in this situation. If they re-sign him after this season, all's forgiven. None of this shit matters, and we go back to business as usual. Go back to your regularly scheduled programming. He leaves after this season. Dallas is in a tough spot. And if he leaves, I'm not saying that they can't find better, but you obviously, if he plays this year and he stays healthy, Dallas is going to win 9, 10, 11, maybe 12 games. That's what they've won each of the last 3 seasons now. There's no Dan Quinn on the defensive side of football. It's a different team. I think they're going to be a lot worse off because of it. Mike Zimmer ain't no damn Dan Quinn, that's for sure. But we'll see what happens in Dallas. But whatever happens, they're not going to be in a position to draft his replacement next year. And the draft class isn't going to be at quarterback, isn't going to be as good. We say that now. We'll see what guys like Quinn Ewers does. And if somebody comes out of nowhere that we're not thinking about right now it's Shedeur Sanders and everybody else in next year's draft class. That's what it feels like. So we'll see what ultimately takes place. But I'm praying that this thing burns to the ground. I'm hoping that this thing goes as bad as it could possibly go. The perfect scenario is Dallas goes 9-8, misses the playoffs. They're right there. We've been there so many times in that NFL draft purgatory of you're drafting 16th overall, no man's land, right? Not getting a quarterback of note there, and you don't have the capital to move up. And you got to, and then they got to roll with Trey Lance, and then you just hope he stinks, and you hope they go through the same shit they went through after Aikman retired. That's what I'm hoping. I don't think it's gonna happen. Dak's a good old boy. He does what he's told. He'll be back in Dallas. Jerry's got him under his thumb. I think he's gonna ultimately be back. But boy, I would love to see this shit burn to the ground. I really would. We'll see what happens. I'm fascinated. Normally, I don't give a shit what happens with Dallas as long as they don't win a Super Bowl. I am fascinated with what is going on with Dallas. They didn't do anything this offseason. They lost a bunch of stuff. They're not the same team. They don't have any cap space. Their quarterback's going into the last year of his deal. He's making $55 million, which is handicapping them. They got to sign CeeDee Lamb. They got to sign Michael Parsons. This shit is really interesting stuff. This doesn't work out and Dak leaves after the season, they're screwed. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I love it. Jerry said, my definition of all in and what all in looks like to me isn't the same as what all in looks like to you. We're all in. Okay, Jerry. You were all in last year when you went out and traded for Stephon Gilmore and went and got Brandon Cooks. You were all in last year. This don't feel like all in to me. But I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys again. We'll be back live in our normal time slot, hopefully on Thursday. So that's the goal, is to be in that 4 o'clock, 4:30 range on Thursday. We'll see if everything kind of fits in that time frame for us or not. If not, we'll see when we can squeeze in another pod, maybe Friday afternoon. Then won't be Friday night, more likely than not. So we'll figure out another time to get another podcast off this week. That's the goal. We'll see what transpires. But in the meantime, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I really appreciate y'all kicking it with the kid. If you haven't already done so, on the way out, please bless the kid by hitting the like button. Over 300 of you guys out there, only 165 likes, even though that's a lot for y'all. Y'all actually did really good. I'm proud of y'all for that. But hit the like button if you haven't already done so. And I'll see you guys next time. You guys have a good one. God bless and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.